I still remember the exact second my heart turned to stone. It was the moment my own mother looked me dead in the eye in that courtroom and hissed, "He doesn't deserve a single cent," like I was some stray dog sniffing around their table scraps. And the judge? He just opened the envelope I slid across the bench, read one page, and laughed. Not a polite chuckle. A real, belly-deep laugh that made my father go the color of old ash. "I'm Elias. 37. I fix locks for a living. And for 15 years I was the family ATM with a heartbeat." You ever feel the air change before a storm hits? That thick, electric hush. That was my life every Sunday when I walked into my parents' house with a toolbox and a forced smile. Mom would be in the kitchen, humming over burnt gravy like nothing was wrong. Dad in his recliner, remote in one hand, resentment in the other. My little sister Harper on the couch, legs tucked under her, scrolling through vacations she never paid for, wearing sunglasses indoors because the light hurts her energy. I'd kiss cheeks, crack jokes, and quietly hand over whatever bill they'd forgotten to pay that month. Mortgage. Electric. Harper's credit card binge at some crystal shop. They'd pat my arm, say, "You're the strong one, Eli. We're so proud." And I'd swallow it. Every time. Because that's what good sons do, right? But there was this one evening, maybe 2 years ago, when the mask slipped just enough to scare me. We were eating lasagna that tasted like cardboard and guilt. Dad poured himself his 4th glass of cheap red and stared at me over the rim. "You know, when Grandma finally goes," he said, casual as weather, "that house is gonna save us all." Harper smirked. Especially now that the reverse mortgage fell through. Mom shot them both a look sharp enough to cut glass, then turned to me with that syrupy smile. "Pass the garlic bread, sweetheart." I passed it. But my stomach dropped through the floor. Because Grandma had already told me, in a voice barely louder than the oxygen machine, exactly where that house was going. She lived in a little cedar-shingled place across town that smelled like cedar and Vicks Vapor Rub. I was the only one who still had a key that worked. I'd let myself in twice a week, fix whatever creaked, bring groceries, sit with her while she watched Wheel of Fortune and pretended she wasn't dying. One night she grabbed my wrist with fingers like bird bones and shoved a manila folder into my hands. "Read it when I'm gone," she whispered. "And don't let them bully you, Eli. Promise me." I promised. I always kept my promises to her. She died on a Tuesday in March. I carried her casket. I paid the caterer. I stood in the rain while my parents posed for sympathy selfies. And 2 days later, the locks on Grandma's house were changed. My key slid in, turned, and hit nothing. Dead. I stood on that porch like an idiot, rain dripping off my hair, staring at the shiny new brass that screamed, "You're not welcome here anymore." That was the first real betrayal. But it wasn't the worst. I went straight to the lawyer whose name was on the folder. Mr. Delgado remembered me. He drafted the will himself, right there at Grandma's kitchen table while she sipped Lipton tea and told him exactly what she wanted. Everything, house, savings bonds, the vintage Mustang in the garage, to me. Because, in her words, Elias is the only one who ever showed up without an invoice in his heart. Then Delgado slid a second document across the desk. A brand new will. Dated 3 weeks before she died. Everything split evenly between my parents and Harper. My name reduced to personal effects and photographs. Signature at the bottom. Grandma's, supposedly. Except the loop on the Y in her last name was wrong. Too tall. Too perfect. I'd watched her sign my birthday cards for 37 years. That wasn't her hand. Delgado looked almost sorry. "Your father brought this one in himself. Notarized by a buddy of his down at the VFW. Said your grandmother changed her mind at the last minute." I laughed so hard I scared the receptionist. She was in a morphine coma that week. Couldn't even lift a spoon. So I did the only thing I had left. I stopped being useful. I printed 15 years of bank statements. Every transfer labeled, "Mom, emergency." Every Zelle to Harper with the little cupcake emoji she always used. Every auto payment to Dad labeled, "Retirement top-up, love you son." I wrote a letter. Cold. Factual. 8 pages of dates and dollar signs and broken promises. And at the very bottom, one line that made my hand shake when I typed it: should the court choose to honor the fraudulent document, I withdraw all future financial and emotional support, effective immediately. I hit send at 2:17 a.m. Then I turned my phone face down and waited for the world to burn. The hearing was standing room only, because apparently my family had invited half the neighborhood to watch me get humiliated. Dad wore his only suit, the one he saves for weddings and funerals. Mom clutched her pearls like rosary beads. Harper live tweeted the whole thing with the hashtag family first. I wore my work boots. Still had metal shavings in the treads from a job that morning. The Judge Ramirez, gray hair, zero patience, opened my envelope, skimmed the first page, and did that laugh. The one I told you about. Dad actually stood up. Your Honor, sit down, Mr. Torres, Ramirez said without looking up. Your son just handed me a decade-long receipt for being your personal lender. With interest rates only a saint would charge. You could hear a pin drop. Or maybe that was just my pulse in my ears. He ordered the handwriting analysis on the spot. Froze every asset. And looked straight at me. Mr. Torres, you've been more than patient. The court will not order you to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. My mother gasped like he'd slapped her. That night the calls started. Dad left 17 voicemails that escalated from fake calm to screaming to drunk crying. Harper sent paragraphs about how I was tearing the family apart for bricks and mortar. Mom just sent one text: after everything we sacrificed for you. I slept better than I had in years. 2 months later the report came back. Signature forged. Date impossible. Notary suddenly unavailable for comment. Original will upheld. House mine. Savings mine. Mustang mine. I walked into that courthouse for the final signing alone. My parents didn't even show. Their lawyer handed over the keys like he was passing me a live grenade. I drove straight to Grandma's house, my house now, and sat on the porch steps until the sun went down. Found an envelope taped inside the mailbox. My name in her shaky handwriting. Inside, a single brass key on a red ribbon and a note. If they ever make you choose between your peace and their comfort, choose you. I already did. Love always, Grams. I cried right there on the welcome mat. Ugly, snotty crying. The kind that rips your chest open and leaves you hollowed out and strangely new. I still get the random text from Harper when her car won't start. Still see Mom's name flash on my phone and let it ring. Dad tried one last time, left a voicemail that just said, "You'll regret this when we're gone." I saved it. Might play it at their funerals just to remind myself why I won't be paying for those either. So here I am. New deadbolts on every door. New van in the driveway, paid in cash. And for the first time in my adult life, when my phone buzzes at 3 a.m., it's an actual customer, not a family member who can't figure out why their gravy train derailed. I fixed locks for a living. Turns out the hardest one to change was the one I kept wide open for people who never deserved the key. If this was you. If the people who were supposed to love you most tried to steal your future to fund their present. Would you unlock the door one more time? Or would you finally throw away the key? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. Because some nights I still wonder if I'm the monster they say I am. Or just the first one in 3 generations who refused to stay chained.